Check. Okay. Hello, my first watcher for this live stream. We'll start in just a minute as soon as a few more people are here. All right, well, let's get started. Hello from Holland. Hello, Holland. Nice to meet you. I've been to Holland. Have I been to Holland? If I to say more, I'll expose my lack of knowledge about Europe's geography. So let's just assume I've been to Holland. Hey everybody, I've got a big queue here up. We'll go for about 2 hours. If my past experience is any guide, I'll do maybe about 10 of these, hopefully. And I've also got in the upper left-hand corner, I've got the chat log up so that you can see when your comment appears. There's a little bit of a delay between what I see and what you see. So that way, if you type a comment and I don't respond, you can see if your comment has popped up yet. Or rather, on the output, I see it as soon as you make it. But then when I respond, you don't hear my response for about 30 seconds or so. So anyway, and the one we're going to start with here is David Pilot. And David is got a Blackout Mini H, 2-year-old Blackout Mini H. Oh, good times. That's for the very first mini quad frame. Vibrations and jello on the video, no matter what PIDs you try. So the first thought that I have about that is that you got to go back to your gyros and your physical tune. If you've got vibrations and jello, it's probably not a PIDs thing, because when you talk about jello in the high def cam, jello is a very, very high frequency oscillation. Well, oscillation isn't even really the right term for it. It's vibration or noise, and it's so high frequency. The highest P or D oscillation is just not going to probably cause that. So probably you have a problem with vibration. Now, you're on 6-inch props. 6-inch props are inherently more vibration prone than 5-inch props because they have more mass. Also, they're spinning slower, so the vibrations that they make are lower frequency, which means that if you've got a cutoff frequency on your filter, right, as a 5-inch prop is going to have noise way up here, and a 6-inch prop is going to be a little closer to that cutoff frequency, so more noise is going to get through. Okay, so my experience has been that 5-inch props, you can almost always, well, I feel like I can almost always hard mount the camera with no vibration isolation, really not even any foam. You could just strap the camera right to the top plate with most 5-inch props and not get jello or anything like that. If you get a little bit of jello, you add some foam or some foam tape or something like that, and you get a little bit of isolation and it's good. But with 6-inch props, you're not always going to be able to get away with hard mounting the camera. So I would say to David Pilot, if your copter is flying good and the only complaint you have is vibrations and jello in the high def camera, then just put some vibration damping foam, some neoprene, some of that foam that comes with the Cobra motors a lot of people like to use. Yeah, or even maybe some of those vibration isolating bobbins, right? So that's the direction I would go with that. It is possible to run 6-inch props and not get vibration, but it's harder. And you may end up in a world where you're balancing your props, and who wants to do that? So I would approach this by vibration isolating your camera if the copter's flying good. okay? You're not going to solve this problem with anything you do with a low-pass filter, okay? Because the problem is not being caused by your PIDs. So let's take another example. Let's say that your P gain is too high, and whenever you raise the throttle, the copter starts vibrating, oscillating. Whoa! Ah! There's a big black ant on my hand. Okay, well, that was a surprise. Okay. Now, let me get back to what I was saying. It's not the PIDs that are causing the oscillation in this case, though. It's the motor vibration is causing the oscillation. So you could change the camera. In other words, you're not going to make the camera smoother by changing your filters. Okay, you're not going to make the camera smoother by changing your P gains or your D gains, because that's not where the vibration is coming from in the first place. Okay, so really, almost, we're going to look at your black box log, but the real solution to your problem has nothing to do with tuning. And that's, by the way, a really good tuning tip. If you have vibration in the high def cam, right, but not, for example, in the FPV cam, then you know for a fact that the vibration has something to do with the mounting of the high def cam. Whereas if you have vibration in both cameras, it could be a tuning thing, okay? It does not guaranteed to be a tuning thing, but it could be a tuning thing. Yeah, that was a big jump. Yeah, it was a big jump. I just looked at my hand for a second. There's something on it. Johnny Freedom, if you want to submit footage or anything, go to, and this goes for everybody, if you want to submit footage, go to my black box log video responses thread on RC groups. That's where you can submit something for inclusion in the live stream. Here is the current queue, and we'll be working through the queue as much as we can in this session. Okay, going back here. 475 grams on 6045 props, flying 3S. Well, still 3S 2200. Oh, I see. 475 grams without the battery. Okay, that makes sense. So if you're at around 591 grams of the 3S or 20, yeah, don't do this. This cannot fly well, right? Can that possibly fly well? I mean, if that's what you like, I guess go for it. A 700 gram copter with a 2200 milliamp hour, it doesn't matter how much thrust those motors are making, it's got to handle like a pig. Anyway, hi, Mr. Murderer 75. Yeah, I assume you must be overseas. I tried to do this one a little earlier in the day so that you folks over in Europe and Australia and wherever else off in the east you are could get in on it. So let's take a look at your, not this, let's take a look at your log 255. Hang on. Let me clear out my downloads folder here so that I can just have the stuff from today's session in there. Yeah, so Johnny Freedom, your all-up weight is 698 grams. My experience was, and this was on 4S, my Strider was topping out close to 690, 700 grams. And what I found was this. When I was at, say, 25 or 30 degrees of camera up tilt, everything was fine. Okay? But when I got to about 35 degrees of up tilt or more, the copter was going so fast that when I tried to do sharp turns, it just did not have enough thrust from the motors to actually make sharp turns. You know, right? The slower you're going, the less thrust it takes to turn. So I was going so fast, I would go through a sharp turn and just an arm would drop. And as soon as I lightened the copter up, by which I mean I rebuilt it, I built a new copter. As soon as I did that, then things got better. So if you're happy with how it flies at 700 grams, then no big deal. But there will be a point where that weight will become the limitation on the copter's performance, because the motors will just run out of thrust. And the difference between 600 and 700 grams is pretty substantial. It may not sound like much. Oh, it's only 100 grams. It's only whatever, 1/7 or whatever percent, but it does add up, and it does make a difference. So I can only imagine what folks who are down at 500 or 450 or 400 grams, like on a really, really light racing copter, are getting in terms of handling and performance. Okay, this is 255, log 255.txt. No, that's the only one. Make it easy. So let's take a look now at the gyros and see what we see. Let's see if we can figure out why we're getting jello on this high def cam. Okay, and immediately we can see that this is a relatively noisy copter. It's not like the most noisy copter ever in the world. You know, like my yaw axis was worse than this before I put my my flight controller on the vibration damping bobbins. But you can see this is pretty noisy. It's pretty noisy. So then the question is, and this is not anything that would be caused by the tune, because when the little wiggles and jiggles get squeezed so close together that they just become a blur, that's high frequency stuff, okay? That's high frequency noise. That's not the tune. If we look and we can see individual lines, you know, going around, that might be tuning related stuff. But you can see even here where the lines, normally the lines thin out as the copter goes into more extreme maneuvers, because the motor, some of the motors spin up, some of them spin down, right? Here we can see that the motors are relatively quiet, and that's why the line thins out here, because there's less vibration because you've dropped the throttle. But you can see even here, you know, the line is relatively thick. So you've got a lot of vibration, and the copter probably flies fine. This is, the thickness of this line is consistent with the amount of noise. You know, Betaflight or CleanFlight can handle it easily, but it's definitely probably enough to be making jello for your camera. So I would reiterate, if your tune is good, you're happy with the way the copter flies, then just address the problem you're actually having, which is the vibration, and just put the camera on some vibration damping. And if we look here, we can see the D term is a little active. What I mean by that is that the D gain, that's the yellow line, is larger in magnitude than the P gain, which is the red line, okay? So we normally don't want to see the D term being larger in magnitude than the P term, but it's not terrible. There's also some high frequency noise in the D gain here, and that is these narrow, sharp, back and forth spikes. And that is probably your gyro noise. Remember, the D term amplifies noise, and that means that in a copter with more noise, the D term is also going to be noisier. You might want to add, oh yeah, this is getting pretty bad here. So we can see here the D term is approximately twice the size of the P term. It's much larger. Yeah, see, we would want to, that's not ideal. You could certainly try and fix this by reducing D gain, and that's the direction I would probably go. In general, I think you get better performance by just reducing D gain than by trying to add filtering. But you could also add filtering by messing with the D term LPF hertz. Overall, though, this does not look like a terrible tune. Even when the D term is getting out of sorts, it's not awful. It's not awful. So I don't think this is terrible. And I would probably, you'd probably be fine just to add some vibration damping to your camera. But you're not going to get rid of the jello on your high def cam by changing your tune, and that's the takeaway. And that's going to be, as we're going to close that one out. Yep. Little B's are pretty decent ESCs. Man, it was not long ago, Mr. Murder says, that Little B's were the champ. They were the first. Were they the first? Oh, somebody will prove me wrong. They were one of the first non-KISS ESCs to have the hardware gate drivers. And hardware gate drivers versus discrete components like resistors and capacitors, and I don't know what else. I don't design these things. But the hardware FET drivers, they really improved the ability of the ESC to do braking. And they were just the best for, like, I don't know, a month. I'm really glad I'm not in the business of designing hardware, because stuff is top of the line for a very short period of time, and then very quickly something else comes along to surpass it, and that's it. So I don't know how these folks do it. Is KISS really the shit? The KISS used to be way far and above anything else that was on the market. KISS is currently still very good, but I think there are BLHeli ESCs out there that are close to as good as KISS. Some people still prefer KISS. I'll tell you what I think that KISS has going for it still that other people don't have. So KISS has hardware FET drivers versus discrete components, which makes very, very good braking. Now that is a standard thing that everybody's got nowadays. KISS has a fast processor. It's not a Scilabs processor. It's actually an Atmel processor, but it's not the Atmel 328P that all the Afro ESCs and the really mediocre ESCs use. It's some other. When I first heard KISS had an Atmel processor, I was like, seriously? But no, it's some high-end one that's really fast and good. But nowadays, most of even the cheaper Scilabs ESCs have the F390 processor, which is very fast. I don't know if it's off the top of my head if it's faster than the one on the KISS, but it's fast enough. Let's put it that way. So those are two gaps that have been closed. KISS still has an advantage in input resolution. I believe KISS has something like 2,000 steps of input resolution, whereas BLHeli has approximately 255 steps of input resolution. So KISS has more input resolution, and what that means is that you can get a smoother motor response. Instead of going, it goes, You get it like that? Everybody likes when I do sound effects. Okay, so KISS will have smoother throttle response. And the other thing that KISS has that still nobody has, although it's coming, is a hardware PWM driver. So PWM is pulse width modulation, which means that you're making the electricity go up and down in a controlled way. And one way to do that is to just take a general purpose I/O pin on a microprocessor and just make it go high, low with the amount of timing that you want. Another way to do it is with a discrete chip whose only job is to make the signal go high, low, and that's called a hardware PWM driver. So you just say, give me a PWM duty cycle of X, and it does it. And the advantage of that is that it can drive the signal much more precisely and much more rapidly, and that is something that KISS has that currently I think the BLHeli ESC, which is not yet available to the public, is going to be the first one on the market to actually do that. I don't think there are any BLHeli ESCs on the market right now that have a hardware PWM driver. So those are two advantages that KISS still has. Now, if you go to, shameless plug for test bench, what's his URL? I can never, mini-quad test bench, that's it. This is Quad McFly's site, and you guys should check it out because he knows way more about ESCs and motors than I do. And if you want to know what the best ESC to get is, you should go just check out his results. And he is on, when people ask what ESC should I get, I say whatever one he is currently recommending. He is, in my opinion, the source, at least for mini quads. Maybe if you're going to build a camera platform with 80 amp ESCs, that's not his forte. But if you're building a mini quad, this is the place to go. And or you just ask on his thread over on RC Groups, which is this thread, which I'm sure all of you know about, right? But it's this thread, ESC Performance Testing Database. Just go ask him and he'll tell you what the current best one is. I think he's currently recommending the AIKON, AIKON ESC, and one other. But the thing is, ESCs are getting very, very good. And I think if you were to get even one of the cheaper, like F390 ESCs with BLHeli right now, they're very good. And they're going to get better. But the days where you, like, if you bought think about the difference between an old Afro 20 amp ESC and the like the DYS BL20 or SN20. There's a pretty big difference. And the SN20 is not a great ESC by today's standards. It's pretty mediocre. You might even call it bad, although it has such a good record at kind of insulting to it, But they've gotten so much better that the difference is, I think, leveling off. So today, if you were to get something like an XM20, any of the F390 ESCs with the F390 processor on them are probably pretty good. Like the Little B Pro 20 amp, the XM20, any of those ESCs are probably going to be good enough for most anything you're going to want to do. And it's only if you really, really, really want to push the edge of the best that you're going to hold out for something like the BLHeli S or maybe the KISS. KISS is still near the top of every test. So yeah, but if you really want to know, go check out Mini Quad Test Bench, and that is the place to really get the answers because that information changes so fast. I just can't keep up. Yeah, not just quality FETs. Yes, the FETs are important too. One thing you'll notice is that the ESCs have gotten much smaller. And so now you'll have a 20 amp ESC and it's like that big. And you're like, how did that happen? And the reason is that they're using lower and lower resistance FETs. So the FETs can pass more power without getting hot. So they've gotten better and better. But it's not just the FETs, it's the processor speed. The faster the processor, the more times you can update the signal, so you can have a higher frequency input signal, and also things like hardware PWM drivers and dedicated gate drivers. What frame would I recommend these days? If money is no object, you're not really on a budget, I don't think you can go wrong with one of the popular frames, like the Alien, ImpulseRC Alien, like the QAV-R, or the QAV-210. Those are some choices. The Shendrones frames are quite good. The reason I say go with a popular frame is that if you go with frankly, even a ZMR 250 or 210 is an okay choice. Now, I know there are people out there who are rolling their eyes that I put the ZMR in the same category as the Alien or the Lumineer frame. But here's the reason I say that. A popular frame will give you a lot of support out there in the world for questions you have, for accessories, for replacement parts, and that goes a long way. It goes a long way. You can buy a more obscure frame, and you're not going to find anybody else out there who's done a build of it. So if you have a question, you're kind of just going your own way. And if that's where you want to be, that's great. There's a lot of good choices. The other thing is that these popular frames, like if you buy an ImpulseRC Alien, who, by the way, I have no affiliation with them. They haven't even sent me a free frame. Damn it. But, if you buy that frame, you will know that Mr. Steele has flown the crap out of that frame, that Schizo has flown the crap out of that frame, that a million pilots have flown just that frame to the end of the earth. And if there's anything wrong with that frame, they broke it, and then ImpulseRC fixed it, right? So you can feel reasonably confident that other people have solved all the problems with the frame when you buy a popular frame. You do pay a premium for that, but I think that's got an intangible value that is easy to overlook when you're buying a cheaper frame. Why is the ZMR X210 worse than the Alien? Oh, that's a very interesting question. You know what? I can't answer that question because I have never had an Alien on my bench or in my hands, and so I couldn't compare them directly. The ZMR X210 compared to the QAV-R, though, that's a tougher one. If you watch my ZMR X210 review, there are some things about it that I nitpick. And the gist of it is that those things, for the most part, are not there on the QAV-R. What I like to say is that the QAV-R compared to the ZMR X210 from FPV Model, the QAV-R is twice the frame at 3 times the price. So you do get a better frame, but you pay a lot more for it, right? And so it's just a question of whether that's worth it to you or not. I do still like the ZMR X210. I do still like it. I had a real eye-opening experience with the the LT210 that I ordered from Banggood, because when I got it, I was surprised at just how it was like $50, and that's almost as much as the QQ190 I was sent which is a top-notch frame in every way. And the ZMR X210, which is a very, very good frame. And this Banggood frame came for, I think it was $45 or $50, and it was really, there was a lot to not like about it. And if you look at my review of that frame, you can see that I just didn't have very much good to say about it. So I think that there's definitely some advantages to picking one of these frames that is just because a frame is $30 or $40 off the internet doesn't mean it's going to be good. And just because a frame like the ZMR X210 is $50 or thereabouts doesn't mean it's going to be bad compared to a $150 or $100 frame. So I do think the ZMR X210, I guess what I would say is I'm a lot more cautious right now about, they're all pretty much the same, because I have a better perspective on the kind of refinement that goes into the higher end ones. But the good news is that you don't have to pay out the nose to get a good serving of that refinement in a cheaper frame like the ZMR X210. Hang on, hang on. Just let me see if there's anything else I've missed. Somebody asked, BLHeli or multi-shot. I don't think that question actually means anything. Multi-shot is the protocol that the flight controller uses to talk to the ESC, like one shot. So BLHeli will use multi-shot. BLHeli will use one shot. So I don't think that question makes sense, but maybe you mean one shot or multi-shot, and I don't know the answer to that. If you restate the question, I'll try and take another stab at it. Recommended frame these days, I got that. Let's see. Yeah, indeed. DIY. No, I don't know. I don't know the answer to this question about the HS1177. Your camera's screwed up. Swap it for another camera and see if it happens. I don't know this frame, so I have to reserve comment. Let's take a quick look at it, and then I am gonna get back to the analysis briefly. This is an interesting style of frame, and I'm curious about it. I do like that it puts the battery a little lower. People think that the CG on their frame is much higher than it actually is. If you take your copter and you hang it from the props, pinch the props in your fingers and hang it. And if it tilts this way, the CG is above the prop line. And if it tilts that way, the CG is below the prop line. You follow? Right? And if it hangs perfectly flat, the CG is at the prop line. Do that with the battery on, and I think you'll be surprised that most of this style of copter, with the battery up top, the CG is actually pretty close to the prop line. You think it's way high, but it's not. And if you do that same thing with like a Krieger or a Mitsuko with an underslung battery, you will find perhaps that the CG is actually way below the prop line. So this idea that we need to lower the battery to get the CG closer to the prop line may not be true. But there is an advantage to lowering the battery, and that is that the more centralized the weight is, the more nimble the copter can be. So it's actually not, maybe less important to have the CG right at the prop line, but it may be more important to centralize the weight and make the copter more nimble. This is a very tight build. It's going to be more challenging to build, but if you're buying this, that's not a concern for you. Probably wouldn't recommend this as a first build, though. The shorter standoffs are going to make it less likely to break because there's less leverage and it's more sort of stiff. Yeah, so those are my thoughts. The other thing is that I'm a little torn on this double-decker design because if you nose in hard, the battery is going to go into that plate, isn't it? Let me get it on camera. It's going to jam right into that plate. It seems like that could be bad for your battery, and I might almost like a flat plate like this to help protect the battery. But on the other hand, the scenario you get where you crash and the battery shears your camera off your top plate, that's not going to happen. But I'm just thinking of going nose into the ground at 30 miles an hour and the edge of this carbon fiber plate going straight into my battery going, I don't know if that's the best. So, yeah. How to enable black box logging on the Naze 32? No, Naze 32 Rev 5 does not have a built-in chip. You need the OpenLog device. There are some channels on my, some videos on my channel about that, and I'll let you look those up yourself. Yeah, stability well, the issue with stability is having the CG close to the prop line. Okay, when the CG is at the prop line, then you should be stable. I think. If the CG is way above the prop line, the copter will tend to tip over, and if CG is below the prop line, you may get a pendulum effect. Okay. Possibly. Bounce back. D is not fixing it. Reduce I. Possibly. Make sure P is high enough first, though, because if P is too low, then you won't have enough authority to stop the move aggressively. And with that, I'm going to do another one of these. This is zaniix, and I will hold your questions until I get done with this one. This is zaniix. Looks like a mess. Oh, great. Jello in the camera. No video. That's okay. D-gain is too high. That should be pretty obvious when we look. Let's go ahead and extract this, and we will get to it. And this, and this. Okay. 254. We'll start with the gyros. Yeah, I could see that. For a camera platform, you want stability more than you want agility. So you may be better off having the mass more distributed if it does give you more stability. Also, lower CG, that pendulum effect may help you because the pendulum effect will tend to sort of self-stabilize the copter. If you think about a copter with a big ball hanging from the end of it like a weight, right? It's going to self-stabilize, isn't it? So lower CG will, but that's bad if you're trying to do acro racing. It might be good for a camera platform. Yeah, my pleasure, Johnny. That's what I like to do. I have big dreams. I have big dreams of being a massive YouTube star and leaving you all behind. So no, I just like talking about this stuff and like helping people out. So it's good to be useful. All right, so we look at the gyros here. These spikes here are interesting. We don't look like we have a lot of noise, but the roll axis looks super noisy, except it doesn't exactly look noisy, does it? Because if you look at it, this is not like a evenly thick line. If we had gyro noise, the line would be kind of evenly thick all the way across. This is a line with these little jagged whoop, whoop, sticking out, right? And that may be D-term noise. Also, the fact that it is only on one axis is very interesting. Now, it's often the case that noise will be more prevalent on one axis than the other axes, right? So that's normal. But it's really unusual to see the pitch and, let's see, yaw and pitch are super thin and clean, and roll is kind of sloppy mess. We would normally expect to see like roll be noisy and pitch be like a little less noisy. So this makes me think this is a tuning issue, not a physical noise issue. We will go to the roll axis, which is the one that seems to be having the issue. We'll zoom in and we got all these. The D term is way overactive here. So the D term is, I'm going to try and make sure I'm covering, you know, I just tend to assume that everybody who's found my channel has been watching me from the beginning. And so if I explained which of these was the D term line like 6 months ago, I just, you know, assume you've got it, right? But I shouldn't assume that. And I think I might be leaving some people out who want this information. So I'm going to try and remember to do the more elementary stuff as well and not skip that. So the D term line is the yellow line. And we can see that it is super active with lots of big spikes up here and lots of high frequency components, which is the very narrow spikes, right? It is way more active than the P term. It is constantly jumping out to a greater magnitude than the P term and is just the number one thing you see, and that's not what we generally want to see. So yeah, so I agree that lowering the D term, the D gain, is appropriate here. Now this is very interesting. At high throttle, the copter is actually remarkably well behaved, which is quite unusual. But there you go. As soon as you get back down to the lower throttle, you know, you're getting all this noise here. So yeah, I think what I would lower it. And it's just like, you know, you go to the doctor says, and here we've got this issue where the D term is clearly overactive. We got to bring it into line before we can get a good picture. Sorry about that. Before we can get a good picture of what else is going on. Okay. That's Randy. I'll save that question. Okay. That's an interesting question. Okay. So let's take a look at what your gains actually are by going, by going to the, here we go. Oh, and it's in the zip file. Okay. Hang on. Oh, well, there's your config dump, but it appears to be empty. I don't know. Yeah, no, there's nothing in there. So I was going to look at your gains and suggest them, but I can't do that because it doesn't appear to be there. So take your D gain down to like 5. Now you know the D term is not causing any problems. Now tune your copter so it flies as good as you can with just the P and the I gain. Then start to bring the D term back up as much as needed to handle things like bounce back on flips and rolls. But yeah, I agree with you that your D term is super loud. Your copter as a whole appears to be relatively noise free, so I think this should be a solvable problem. I think your D gain is just too high, and specifically on roll. And that is that. That is, no, not this one. Close that window. That is this one. That is zaniix. So let's, if one of your ESCs beeps out of sync with the others, the ESC beeps the initialization tone when it first recognizes the throttle signal coming from the flight controller. If you have one that's beeping late, that used to be an issue with one-shot auto detection not working correctly. The ESCs would not auto-detect the one-shot signal under some conditions. When we first started going to 1,000 loop time, the very fast loop time meant that the signal was coming in so fast that the ESCs got confused. That's fixed, though. I would make sure that you are on a recent rev of BLHeli, assuming that you're using BLHeli, of course. If you're on 13 dot whatever and you're using a modern version of Betaflight or CleanFlight with the faster loop times, that's probably the issue. So be on at least 14.0, BLHeli 14.0, okay? 14.2 is a safe one to go to, I'm pretty sure. That's the one, I think I'm on 14.4, but some people have some issues with 14.4 and go back to 14.2. I think either of those should be fine. But if you're on 13.6 or something, then that's probably your issue. That's what I would say. When some spikes are high, yeah, Johnny Freedom, when some spikes are high, sort of. D term specifically, you'll get these high frequency spikes. With the P term, you'll start to get smooth oscillations, right? So you're just looking for the bad behavior. Oh, hang on. Stream is messing up. Uh-oh. Oh, hang on. Precious to us, you. I was saying you got to get your check. The question about the ESCs, not beeping at the same time. Make sure that you are on a recent rev of BLHeli. If you're on an old rev of BLHeli, upgrade to like 14.2 or 14.4. That's what I would say. Oh, hang on. Let me make sure. Okay, that's good. The number one thing is that you're on maybe an old rev of BLHeli and it doesn't like the 1,000 loop time with one shot. If that's not working, you may have a bad motor header. If you have a bad motor header, the throttle signal will get corrupted a little bit. It'll take the ESC a time to pick it up. The simplest thing to do, and this is the most basic troubleshooting technique you could possibly have, is swap things. So if you've got an ESC, is it always the same ESC that's late? Okay, just unplug that ESC, unplug another one, switch them. Don't fly that way. You won't fly that way. But switch them, power up again, see if the problem stays with the motor header or moves with the ESC. And that'll tell you whether your motor header's bad or your ESC is bad. Unknown. City Pearson, unknown. Could be a resonant frequency of the frame. That's definitely possible. It could be some kind of KISS auto timing issue. Don't know. If it was BLHeli, I would tell you to adjust your dither setting. The dither setting can deal with throttle position related oscillations between the ESC and the motor. But I don't know that KISS has anything like that. It's just all automatic with KISS. Either it works or it doesn't. Let's move on to the next one. 1523, MtnSnowFlyer. Okay, we got a crash at the end, so I guess we'll investigate the crash and we'll do general comments on the tune. Let me click through here. By the way, I have adjusted my volume, so I hope that I will not be blowing you guys out with massive volume this time. Crash investigation. Let me just maximize this. Well, I'm not going to watch 3 minutes of this. Hang on. Yeah, we definitely had something. Hang on, let's go watch it again and listen. I'm going to turn up the volume just slightly. Okay, so you hear that squeak right before the motor goes? Listen again. That squeak right there is possibly an indication of a desync. Now, it's very, very popular to claim desync these days. A lot of things, especially as air mode has come out and Super Expo, people who have their min throttle set too low are having motors lose authority because the motor idles too low. And then the arm drops, and they call it a desync. It's not a desync. You had a motor lose authority, but that's not a desync. A desync is a very specific thing between the ESC and the motor. With an actual desync, there will be a sound. It's kind of a squeaking or a chirping sound. Sometimes there's just one. Sometimes there's more than one. It goes chirp, 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 or sometimes it just goes chirp. But the fact that we have that sort of squeaky, chirpy sound, it means that this may be a desync. Right? The thing is, though, normally a desync will happen when you're changing the throttle position rapidly from low to high, and that was not happening here. So it's kind of unusual to see a desync just happen out of the blue, right? Okay. ESC reset. No, it's not an ESC reset, because if it was an ESC reset, we would hear the ESC initialization tone. Okay, so that's not it. It's a good guess, but that's not it. A brownout. Is it a brownout on the flight controller or something like that? And the answer is no. It's not a brownout because, again, we would hear the initialization tone, and assuming his copter has a buzzer, we would also hear the beep, 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 or, of it powering up. Okay, so it's none of that. It does appear to be just this one motor lost it. Did a prop break? Maybe. Could the prop have broken in flight, and as a result of that, the motor changed speed suddenly because suddenly the motor was unloaded, and that caused a desync, which is the chirp that we hear? Maybe, but I don't think so. And the answer is that if there was a broken prop, the very next thing we'd see is the whole copter going as the off-balance prop shook it. And you can see we don't see that. We don't see any vibration like we would see for a broken prop. Presumably the prop was broken when he landed. Maybe not. I'm not sure if it was prop failure on one of the rear motors. It's interesting you say the rear motor because, correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't you roll forward and to the left? Hang on. Yeah, you're rolling forward and to the right. So a rear motor, it's the front right prop, I think, that had an issue with the front right motor. So let's take a look at your black box log. Is it a zip? 1131. Yeah, it's a zip. Okay. So now I'm going to just look at the gyros and find the spot where the prop broke. I'm going to zoom out. Should be pretty obvious. Vibration. Interesting. Very interesting yaw axis here. You see how there's this pattern in the yaw axis? The yaw axis line kind of looks thick, but then there's these spikes sticking up. That's very interesting. Now you're saying, well, what does that mean? Why is that interesting? I don't know. Just interesting. It looks like there is a higher frequency component transposed with a lower frequency component, is what that is. Anyway, should be pretty obvious where the prop breaks. Probably towards the end, I guess? Yeah, here we go. Okay, here's where it let go. Now let's look at the motors right here. What the heck? Isn't that something? What kind of a copter are we looking at? 330 with 2208 1800 kV motor, 6x45 props. Okay. Well, that's interesting. Huh. Why? Oh, I see. So I'm like, why does the stick go full forward? And the answer is, wait, no, something doesn't add up. Something doesn't add up. Oh, I see. I see. I see. I got it. Okay. So I was like, why does the stick go full forward here? The answer is that you were doing a flip. You started to do a flip. That's the chirp I'm hearing in the motors. It's not the chirp of a desync. It's that you jammed the stick forward and the motors went. Okay, and if you listen to people doing flips and rolls, you can hear the motors doing that. It's just that it was corresponding with the crash that misled me. So actually what we see here is that not that the prop lets go, but right there, he starts to do a flip, and then the copter flips out. Yes, okay. Then that makes more sense. So then, now the copter is flipping out. Now the copter's flipping out. Okay, so it loses it here. So the two motors push hard into the move. The rear motors spin up, the front motors spin down, the copter begins flipping. Let's get the gyro up here as well. And the pitch gyro begins to go positive, indicating the copter is flipping. Now, something gives out. The motor gives out, and the copter begins rolling in addition to flipping, and doing this pretty pattern all the way into the ground. A motor definitely failed, and we can infer that it must have been the front right motor by the fact that the copter is rolling forward or flipping forward and rolling to the right. We can also, the suggestion motor timing in the ESC not optimum, that is back on the table because I said it's usually when the motors are going from high to low that it'll break loose like that, but it didn't appear to happen. But now that we see that you were entering a flip when the motor broke loose and had a problem, that definitely does explain it. We can see here that the motors started to go to idle, and that's normal to see that after the flip begins, the motors will go to idle. But then which one breaks loose? Which one sort of flips out first? Okay, so here we can see, so once the copter is turning, am I still broadcasting? Nope, I am. It froze up for a second, sorry. Once the copter is turning, then the motors don't need to keep pushing. The copter can just roll through it. So these two motors go to idle, and these two motors go, this one goes high, this one goes to 0, and then immediately tries to pick back up again. I can't see in all of this why the copter is rolling to the right, though. This motor is maxed. This motor is maxed because the copter is rolling to the right, and we're trying to arrest the roll. And now these two motors are flipping out and can't stop it. You would expect the motor that had the problem to be the one that was going to max. But the front right motor is not at max. Here, let's see what happens when you return the stick to center. Now the stick is centered. What is the copter doing? Oh, everything's just a mess. So I'm sorry, I'm not taking much from the black box anymore. So I'm going to say your front right motor had a problem. I take that from the fact that you're flipping forward and rolling to the right. I agree with the possibility that min throttle is too low. because you can see in the front flip, these two motors go to idle. And then as you arrest the move, except you never did arrest the move, the stick never returned to center. But the motors did have to spin up at some point. So I'm going to guess maybe min throttle is too low. And when these motors went to idle at the beginning of the flip, then when they had to spin up again to sort of stabilize the copter in the middle of the flip, the front right one broke loose, couldn't spin up again, had a desync problem, who knows. So I'm going to say possibly raise your min throttle. We don't have a CLI dump. You can do the most for you if you give me a CLI dump. Oh, we do have a CLI dump. Okay, I take it back. MtnSnowFlyer, I take it back. You gave me a CLI dump. My bad. Let's see what your min throttle is. I mean, it's not going to tell me anything because I don't know your ESCs off. Min throttle 1035. So with a min throttle of 1035 and you have Afro Slim 20 amp ESCs, I betcha that that is too low. My hunch is that that is too low. Even if they start cleanly on the bench at 1035, with the copter actually rolling, with wind moving past the props, 1035 may be too low to get the props moving again in an extreme situation like that. Try raising your min throttle to 1055 and see what that does. Okay, we're going to call that one good. Yeah, absolutely, J2710. J2710 makes a good point here. That is motor command, not what the motor is actually outputting. So the motor is actually, you know, it's like if you got a bicycle and the chain is off, right? You can spin the pedals all you want. It's not going anywhere. That's when we're looking at the motor's output. That's what's being commanded. But what makes me know, here's the thing. I know that motor recovered. And the reason I know that motor recovered is because if a motor stops producing thrust, the motor trace goes to max and stays there. Because if the PID loop wants any thrust at all out of that motor, it will not get it. And a feedback loop will be set up where it continually asks for more and more and more and more thrust until finally it pegs out. So the fact that none of these motor traces went to the top and stayed there makes me think that probably the motor came back. But by that time, the copter was spinning too aggressively and to recover, and it was just a lost cause. That's what I think. I don't know that for sure. It's possible that the rotation of the copter was such that the motor was commanded to go to full and then zero, and then full and then zero, and the whole time the motor was not doing anything. That's possible, but I think probably not. All right, we're going to call that one. We're going to call that one done. MtnSnowFlyer, hopefully that was helpful. Let's go to the next one. 1523, 1524. ZMR 180, 1806 motors. Oh, little motors. Oh, I see. 4045 props. Okay. 1806 motors have seen a resurgence with the 4-inch props nowadays. Not many people still run 1806 on 5-inch props. No, Arthur Miller, no, that's not normal. It's a tuning issue. I wouldn't assume that you could go from multi-wee. I mean, you went to rewrite from what? I assume you went to a clean flight controller, and instead of using the MW2.3 PID controller, you used rewrite. The PID gains are not the same between those two. You have to completely retune. So yeah, that's normal. You have to completely retune. Are there any other questions? Yes, Johnny Freedom will definitely, add that to the list and get to it sooner or later. Okay, no, we're doing good. Oh, there we go. P-value cannot see oscillations, but is not too sluggish. Good. That's pretty much where you want it. If you guys, I would say this, just a side note here. If you're trying to learn to tune, the number one thing you can do is you can learn to tune your P term, well, and your I term, and your D term. Okay, I guess they're all important. But what you can do is leave your I term at defaults. The defaults are probably pretty close. You're not going to have a terrible experience. Take your D term way down. And then just work your P term slowly up by, let's say you start at like the default might be 4.5. And so then take it up 4.5, 5.0, 5.5, 6.0, 7, until you get to the point where you take off, and the minute you take off, the copter's going, ah. Be careful. Don't, if you get your P term too high, the copter can actually just go and fly to the moon. So be careful. Watch. Don't put yourself in that scenario, and be ready to drop the throttle and dump it at a moment's notice. If you start to throttle up and the copter starts going, just dump it. Okay. But what I mean is, work your P term through up and down, and then once you find that, like, between, let's say you find that between like 5.0 and 6.5, that's about where you start getting oscillations, but it still feels sharp. Now go back through that range with like 4, what did I say? 5.0, 5.0, 5.2, 5.4, 5. Work yourself more slowly through that range, and fly a battery, fly a pack at each of those settings, and feel how the copter feels differently at low, middle, high, overtuned. Okay, it'll be a great education for you if you haven't ever done that, or if you just haven't been tuning long enough that you've sort of done that by default. The P term is super, like, you could fly a copter with the I gain a little too low, and it'll be a little wandery, but it'll be okay. And you can fly a copter with basically no D term at all, and it'll be fine. But if the P term isn't right, the whole thing is garbage. If the P term is too low, the copter's going to fly like garbage. And if it's too high, it's going to be shaking itself all over the place and be bad. So if you were going to pick one of those things to learn to tune, it would be the P gain. The I gain can be in the ballpark, and the copter will be okay. There may be a little bit of destabilization when you chop the throttle, but mostly it'll fly fine. And the D gain, if you don't know how to tune D gain, just set just take it out of the picture. You'll be okay. You may get a little bit of bounce back on flips and rolls, but it'll be fine. But if the P gain isn't right, the whole copter will not fly right. So if you're going to learn to tune one thing, learn to tune the P gain, and really work through. Just methodically work. Take an afternoon, take 10 batteries out there, or take your charger, and just work yourself through the range, and you'll find that there's a rough range where it's close to right, and then work yourself through that range of P gains again. And by the way, so should you do pitch or roll? We'll do pitch and roll together. Leave you all alone. And the range will not be the same for pitch and roll. So roll might be good between, say, 5.0 and 6.5, and somewhere in there is the optimal. Whereas pitch might be, say, 7.0 and 8.5. Okay, but so it's a little more complicated than I'm maybe making it sound. But once you get a feel for what low P gain feels like, you'll recognize it immediately. You'll go, oh, this copter's P gain is too low. Yeah, I got to get this up. And once you get a feel for what high P gain sounds like and looks like, again, you'll start to recognize it immediately. All right. Let's get back on gulzaar's log. Decrease yaw P and I to get rid of violent shake. Okay, fine. A little uncertain as to how I gain would cause violent shake, but okay. Shakes after attempting. It seems like it's doing its own thing for a split second. That might be excess I gain. The copter's sort of continuing to move after you finish a move. That might be high I gain. Let's take a look at the logs. Glad you're learning a lot, Tyler McDonald. That's what I'm in it for. I like helping people learn this stuff. We were looking at, I don't know what we were looking at. Where's the, was it this one? Let's make sure. 811, yeah, that was that right one. We'll look at the gyros first. Now, on 4-inch props, the smaller the prop, the higher the frequency, the higher the RPM, the higher the frequency, generally, all else being equal. We got a 2300 kV motor here, so 4-inch props are going to be higher frequency than 5-inch props because they're going to be spinning faster because they load the motor less. Less surface area on the prop means the prop can spin faster for everything else being equal. Did you catch all that? Smaller props, higher RPM, higher frequency. What that means is that smaller props make less vibration in the gyros because their vibrations are higher frequency. So if you've got a cutoff filter on the gyro, a low-pass filter, and you're right up against the filter, then a lot of that vibration is going to get through. Put my hands where you can see them. No ants. Okay. But the higher the frequency the noise is, the less is going to get through the cutoff, okay? So 4-inch props, we would expect the gyros to be cleaner than 5-inch props. Let's see if we're right. Yeah, not as right as you might like to be. Maybe they're tri-blades. That's not the cleanest traces ever. It's not inherently problematic, though. The issues that are being described here do not sound like tuning-related or vibration-related issues. What are your gains at right now? Dang it. Looks like, okay, here we go. Thank you. 22 is not that high. 18 is not. Oh, sorry. On some of the versions of Betaflight, I think they took the pitch F and yaw F out. That's why I was looking at the standard ones. 16 and 15. Well, that doesn't strike me as unusually high or problematic. So there's nothing wrong there. Yaw P is at 3. That's a normal place for yaw P to be on LuxFloat. This is before Boris. He must be using an older version of Betaflight. Yeah, 253. Boris has retuned Betaflight so that LuxFloat uses the same PID ranges as the other as rewrite. So no problem though. Let's look for like a 360 or something, and we're going to do that by bringing up RC command and looking for extreme stick deflections while zoomed out. So like, what do we got here? A strong pitch move, maybe. Throttle is zeroed. Oh, there's a roll. Let's look at this roll. Let's investigate this roll a little further. We're going to bring up gyro plus PID roll. Yeah, Sean Z FPV. Whether 4S will burn up the ESCs depends a lot on what motors you're running. If they have an amp rating, and when you go to 4S, you generally will pull more amps than on 3S because the motors will be spinning faster and working harder. So if you stay under 12 amps, you should be fine. The other thing is that each component will have an absolute maximum beyond which the component will be damaged from the excess voltage, regardless of the amperage. So right, if you put 50 volts at 1 milliamp through that ESC, so you're going to fry it. It's not at that point, it's the voltage, not the amperage. Okay, but so they're probably not going to immediately blow up on 4S, but you're going to have to make sure you stay under 12 amps. Which, if you don't change props, you may not stay under 12 amps. So let's look at this roll. Rolling left. The red line is the P term. The P term goes negative, is pushing. So you guys, I want you to think of these lines as we're pushing or pulling on the copter, okay? So this is the roll line. When the roll line goes negative, we're pushing the copter to the left. When the roll line goes positive, we're pushing the copter to the right. And I want you to think of the P, the I, and the D as 3 little guys. And the 3 little guys all have their hands on, a joystick. And they're all pulling at different directions, you follow? And some of them are pulling harder and others are pulling less hard. And all of them together end up pulling in a certain direction. It's the sum of their forces, right? So here the P term goes negative. The P term is pushing the copter to roll left. The I term also goes negative. The I term is also pushing the copter to roll left. And the D term goes positive, and don't worry about why that is. Forget that for now. So the D term is pushing the copter to roll right. And the sum of those 3 together as added up to make the PID sum for this axis, and it's literally the sum of the 3 numbers, and that is the net force that the PID loop is trying to impart on the copter. So if I add the PID sum here as a separate graph, this is the PID sum, which is literally the sum of these 3 numbers. The P term, and you can see the PID sum goes negative here. The sum of these, and which means that as a whole, the PID loop is pushing the copter to roll to the left. Okay, fine. We commanded a left roll, so there you go. That's all makes perfect sense. Now, notice that in the middle of the roll, we are still commanding the copter to roll left, right? But here, the PID sum goes to 0, which means that the PID on the PID controller on the roll axis is no longer pushing the copter either left or right. It is saying, don't just keep doing what you're doing. Remember, the copter it started its move and it is rolling. So if the PID sum goes to 0, that will just it'll just keep rolling. We're neither going to try to speed it up nor slow it down. Now notice that the PID sum goes positive. Now the copter is rolling to the left, but the PID sum is pushing to the right. It is trying to slow down the roll. The roll is proceeding quicker than the commanded angular rate. Now you may think, well, I'm at full stick deflection. Well, shouldn't I be rolling pretty fast? Oh, this thing can roll much faster than you want it to. As anybody who has tried Acro Plus knows, it can just spin like a freaking blender, okay? So now the PID loop is trying to slow the move down a little bit. Now it's trying to speed it up a little bit, right? So it's trying to manage the speed of the roll so the roll goes as fast as you want it to. Now what we're going to look at specifically is as the stick returns to center, what is the PID loop doing and what is the gyro doing? Now here's the gyro. The gyro is negative. That tells us that the copter is rolling to the left. Again, if we look as the stick deflects to the left, the gyro goes negative, means the copter is rolling to the left, and the PID sum is pushing the copter to roll to the left. That all makes sense. That's all what we want to see. In the middle of the move, the PID sum is swinging between negative and positive as it tries to speed up and slow down the copter to keep the speed of the roll about whatever angular rate you've asked for from your rates. As the stick returns to center, we see that the PID sum, it's already trying to slow the copter down. And now the copter is slowing down. Now this is interesting. Notice that the copter is slowing down. The gyro line is returning to center, but the PID sum is negative. Negative means that in this case, because the move was to the left and to the left is negative, right? Because the PID sum is now accelerating the move. It is negative. It is in the same direction as the move was going. The gyro is negative. The PID sum is negative. But that's backwards. We should really be slowing the move down, not speeding it up. What we want to see is that at the moment that the stick returns to center, the gyro is at 0. And that would mean that at the moment you centered the stick, the copter stopped moving. And that's what you would like to happen. What do we see? Well, we almost see that. Notice right here, here's where the gyro is zeroed out. The copter has stopped moving, and the stick is almost to center, not quite. But look, what happens then is the gyro continues to go positive. In other words, the copter slowed down and stopped, and then went back the other way. That's not what we want. The stick didn't go the other way. Why did the copter go the other way? Because at the moment, here the PID sum is 0, meaning the copter is doing exactly the right thing. Don't push it either direction. Here the gyro returns to 0, but look, now we are pushing the copter the wrong direction. Okay? So what happened here? Why were we pushing the copter back into the move? We were pushing the copter back into the move because the copter bounced back. The gyro is showing us bounce back, and this P term going negative is opposing this uncommanded gyro move. So this is correct. The mistake here is that the copter rebounded after the stick was centered. The PID loop opposing that, notice the gyro is positive, the PID sum is negative. That means that the PID controller is opposing this move, not reinforcing it. That's correct. The move is uncommanded. The stick is centered. We are not commanding right roll, but right roll is happening. The PID controller is opposing it. That's correct. So then the question is, why did we get this right roll? And the answer must be, notice that we're pushing right roll right here. PID sum is positive. Right roll is being commanded. And that because the copter is spinning too fast. Now as the stick begins to return to center, right roll is commanded. Slow down, slow down, slow down. Notice that the gyro is negative, but the PID sum is positive. So it's saying slow down, slow down, slow down. They're on the opposite side of the line. And then the stick returns to center, and finally it drops off and begins to reverse. So what this looks like to me is that the copter has insufficient authority to end the roll authoritatively. And then by the time the move does end, we've already sort of pushed so much the other direction that now we get this rebound. We sort of overshoot and rebound. What can we do about this? Well, one thing you can do is you can increase P gain on the axis in question, but only if it's not already too high. So what let's do is let's look for signs of excess P gain on this axis. Let's look for P-term oscillations. And in general, I don't see P-term oscillations. Now, the D-term is a little messy here. Let's just take the D-term and the gyro right out of here. Let's take the I-term out as well. Let's look for P-term oscillations, which will be a smooth sinusoidal medium frequency oscillation. I don't see anything like that. Even when the throttle goes up, I don't see anything like that. So it feels to me like you have plenty of room here to increase your P gain on roll. And that will increase the authority and the ability to end the move snappily without that sort of rebound. Okay? So, yeah, so increase your P gain. And what you'll find is this. As you increase the P gain, the copter will stop sharper, and hopefully you get it to the sharpest spot you can. As you continue to increase P gain, you will then get some ringing at the end of the move. So you'll do the flip, and the copter at the end of the move will go whoom, like that, okay? Now that means you've gone too far. Once you find the point where the copter kind of does one sharp rebound, leave the P gain there and start increasing your D gain, or to get rid of that. And you'll find the limits of your equipment, okay? John, I have no idea why it dropped out of the air either. It's just not it's just not enough information to go on. Sorry. Good luck. Okay, so we're going to call that one done. We could do the exact same thing for the pitch X's, but I think we gave a little bit of a dissertation there, and we're going to call that one done. Okay? Gulzaar, hopefully that was helpful. Hopefully it was maybe a little more educational than you wanted, and happy flying. Oh, I got to say happy. I don't get to say happy flying as much on the live streams. 1524. Let's go to the next one. X-Hover, MXP, MPX. Oh, okay, hang on. Let's take a question here before we go into the next one. CC3D Revo or Revo Nano. That's an F4 board, right? Isn't it? I think it is. Or versus the SP Racing F3 versus the KISS FC. So here's the deal. I don't see a reason to go with an F4 controller if you're running Clean Flight today. F3 boards do everything Clean Flight could possibly ask for of them with processor cycles to spare, pretty much. Maybe if you're running the iNav fork of Clean Flight and you're doing some heavy GPS stuff, maybe you could benefit. The F4 processor can do more than the F3, but it's not asking. We're not asking it to. So it seems to me like an F4 board is just paying, okay, so you get an F4 board for like $35, but it seems to me like I would rather have, one of these F3 boards that's, widely supported and very capable. There are very, very good F3 boards available at very reasonable prices. Unless you just love an F4 board and want one, I don't see a reason to buy one from a performance or a flight performance perspective. If you want to run race flight, then you need an F4 board. More power to you. And if you want to run very processor intensive stuff, like I don't know how processor intensive iNav is, and whether if you're running iNav with GPS, with LED strip, with all these other features, whether it'll run out of processor cycles on an F3 board. But in general, I don't think there's a good reason to buy an F4 board if you're running Clean Flight. KISS FC, I don't know anything about it. Well, I mean, I know what I've read on the internet, which you all know as well. They're so popular, and people keep asking me about it, and I would love to do a review of one and find a build to put it in, but you can't find them in stock anywhere. So there you go. I'm curious if the you know, oh, it flies so good. I mean, I bet it flies good. You can fly good at 1 kilohertz. It's true. There's no reason why you must have 8 kilohertz or 4 kilohertz to fly well. But I am curious. But I do love clean flight. Clean flight's what I know, and clean flight. I love watching the development of Betaflight happen in real time, whereas KISS is kind of a closed an ecosystem, and you don't get to see that. So, race worthy, but okay for photography. Here's the thing. Clean flight is not where you want to be if you're building a camera platform for photography. I know that the people who are working on the iNav fork are cringing right now. Once iNav gets rolled into Clean Flight, I may change my mind. But Clean Flight right now has terrible support for GPS. It has terrible support for things like GPS-based loiter, waypoints, return to home, etc., etc., etc. There is a fork of Clean Flight called iNav that adds all that stuff, and the guys who have worked on that fork have done wonderful, wonderful work and deserve lots of credit. But that's not rolled into Clean Flight yet, and hopefully it will be. But I don't know, because it's got so much memory requirements anyway. But right now, Clean Flight is not the right choice if you're building a camera platform. You should be using something like a Pixhawk or an APM, or dare I say it, a DJI NASA, which, for all the hate that DJI gets in some corners of the multi-rotor community, they build a damn good flight controller for a camera platform. It's very good. It flies so good. And the GPS functionality and so forth and so forth and so forth is all there. I have a friend who is a professional, he's a professional aerial cinematographer, basically. He even has his Section 333 from the FAA. If you know what that is, you're super impressed right now. He's like the real deal. And he flies a Phantom. He flies a Phantom... what's the one with the legs that go up? I don't remember. He flies that one. He flies an S1000. And he flies Phantoms. And he says, if you're going to do aerial photography, there is no reason to build it yourself. Just buy a Phantom and go to work. So, anyway, if you're going to build an aerial photography rig, build it yourself with a Pixhawk or an APM. I think are two great choices. I don't have personal experience with them, but they seem like they have good support in the industry. Or just get a DJI NASA and sign your soul away to DJI and get on with your life. That's what I would say. If you want to build a racer or an acro copter or just a fun flyer, Clean Flight is a fantastic choice. Okay. Inspire. Thank you. Inspire. That's it. Okay, let's see what Kevin Pratt 823 has to say. Getting good tune on the X-Hover MXP200. Feels good, but I know it could be better. DAL TJ5045. I love this prop. This is my favorite tri-blade. Well, actually, if I never had to buy them myself, and I never clipped a branch or crashed into the ground or anything, HQ 5x4x3 would be my favorite tri-blade. But since I'm a human and since I have to buy my own props, this is my favorite tri-blade. This is a fantastic balance of responsiveness, thrust, performance, and efficiency. I think it really hits a sweet spot. Oh, and price and durability. Love this prop. Let's see. Let's take a look at the video first. Motors sound pretty smooth on high throttle there. Okay, when he punched the throttle there after falling for a minute, we did not get any shimmy or prop wash oscillation. Likewise there, no shimmy or prop wash oscillation. Very impressed. The motor sounds smooth there. You can hear they kind of have, it's not just a sine wave smooth. There's a little bit of, you know, roughness, but you're at full throttle. What do you want? They sound very smooth, though. There's no harmonics or undertones that might indicate D-term, and there's no shakiness in the camera that would indicate maybe D-term or P-term problems. A little bit of shakiness in the camera there. There we, oh, I saw some prop wash. Okay, now that 60 hertz has loaded in, I finally switched to high def. I can see a little bit of vibration. Oh, yeah. Okay, so mental note: when you're doing a tune, wait for the high def to come in before you start judging it. So I'm positive that the stream is not picking it up, but there is a little bit of roughness in the camera here that might be D-term. If it's P gain, it's super high frequency. P-term oscillations are usually not super high frequency. They're usually sort of mid frequency, like that. Whereas D-term oscillations can be high enough frequency that they just become a buzz, right? Very pleased with how smooth the motors sound at high throttle. And also very pleased with the prop wash handling. There are lots of scenarios where the pilot is drifting like this sideways, and in the middle of that move, the throttle is cut and then raised again, and the copter does not experience any prop wash oscillation or shimmy, and it's just clean as a whistle. That's really good. So the only thing I would nitpick about this tune is that it looks like there may be a little too much vibration. Maybe there's a bad prop or a bad motor, or maybe it's a D-gain thing. Let's take a look at the black box. But boy, when it flies that good, I'm not going to have a lot to say, to criticize, because it just flies so good. What is that? I don't want that. Can I have the file? What the heck? I don't know why. I don't know why it's redirecting me to Dropbox Home. Try again. It's just going to do the same thing though. I don't know. That's weird. Okay, well, I can't seem to get the file, so I don't know why that is. Dropbox is being weird. Let's take a look at your PIDs though. Like I said, I'm not going to have a lot to say because your copter's flying so good. Your D-gains don't look hugely excessive. I would want to look at your gyro traces and see if maybe you have a little bit of vibration that's coming out that's making the camera shudder a little bit. If you have not got the camera with any vibration isolation, like some foam or some foam tape or something like that, I would go ahead and add that. I think your copter is flying great. You just want to smooth out the high def a little bit so that you don't see that when you raise the throttle and your high def stays smooth. So that's where I would go with that. All right. Yep. I would also be interested to see what the logs say. I don't know why, but it doesn't seem to be working. One of you guys out there on the live stream, go to this post. It's post 1535 on the thread, and see if you can pull this file down from Dropbox and maybe email it to me or something. I don't know why, but every time I click on this, it just takes me to my Dropbox as opposed to taking me to the file. Maybe he took the file down or something. I mean, it has been... well, it's only been 4 days. Anyway, if one of you does that and then chats me or emails me or something, I'll give it another go. But for now, I can't look at the file, and I don't know why. But that's okay, because it's very clear that this tune is almost perfect. It's almost perfect. The pilot may have a subjective preference about maybe he'd like a little more P gain or a little less P gain, right, or a little more I gain. But from an objective perspective of looking for sort of objective criticisms, there's really nothing I could see, as I told you when I was watching it. I called it out. Fantastic prop wash handling, very good attitude hold when the throttle is cut and raised, very smooth at high throttle. Really nothing to complain about. And that's it. Why is the link to the post? Here's the link to the post. But it's post 1535 on my thread, on my video logs thread, if you just go find that one. All right, moving on to the next one, 1535, 1540. No, it's no. If nobody gets to it, it's no big deal. We'll just go on with our life. Take a look at my log. No video, very fast and small, twitchy shake in the FPV feed. Okay, so let me just, I love Blackbox, and I love to talk about Blackbox, but there's a bigger world out there than Blackbox. How can we solve this problem? Well, we can look at the HD cam and we can compare it to the FPV cam. If you see it in the FPV cam, but not in the HD cam, what is it? I will leave it to the chat to give answers, and I will keep talking while you guys catch up. You got a shimmy or a shake or a vibration in just the FPV cam, but not the HD cam. I'll wait for that to start coming in. It might be visible in my high-def video also. Okay, that's another sort of story. It is often the case that the difference in camera angle between the HD and the FPV makes vibrations visible in one or the other. No, that's not the answer I was going for. Loose camera lens, that's the correct answer. A lot of these cameras, like the HS1177. Oh, sorry, hang on. What happened to my stream? Oh, there we go. That's better. A lot of these cameras, the lens can get a little loose. And sometimes the lens isn't loose, but inside there's an element that's loose. So you can always just, the lenses are like $2 a piece for spares, for the cheap ones anyway. You can just put a new one on and see if that's it. Loose mounting bracket on the FPV cam, that's also a possibility. The loose lens or the loose lens element is the one I was thinking of. That's a good one though too. The other thing is that if you have a super wide angle lens, like if you have a 2.1 millimeter lens on your FPV cam, you may not see vibrations because the wide angle lens obscures them a little bit. Whereas if you have a slightly narrower field of view on your high def cam, you may see them there, or vice versa. If you have an ultra wide angle GoPro and maybe a 2.8 millimeter lens for FPV, you may not see the oscillations on the wider angle lens. Okay. Let's take a look at this log. It is a twitchy shake. Now, if there is a twitchy shake, then we should see it in the gyro. It would be helpful to have a timestamp to tell us when the twitchy shake was happening. We don't have that, so we're just going to do our best. I'm going to go with this 2-minute one. See, the thing is, now we just got to pick through here and try and figure out where the twitchy shake is that he's talking about. And that's going to be a little hard to do. But let's look at the gyros. Let's start with the gyros. Would I recommend the TJ5045 tri-blade over the HQ 5x4x3? Well, no. I mean, yes, but no. Like I said, if I never clipped a branch and I never had to buy my own props, then I would just fly HQ 5x4x3 all the time. The problem with them is that when they break, they're super expensive. And they break so easily. They're just potato chips. So if you're flying under a tree and you clip a branch, boom, you're done. You're going in. That's it. If you have a bad landing and you tumble into the ground, boom, that $12 or whatever. I know it's probably not, it's not $12, but it's like $1.50 a prop, right? So like $6, $8, something. $2 a prop. I don't know what they're going for nowadays. Because you just break all of them. Every time you crash, that's it. They're all broken. And if you're racing and you clip a gate, you could break the prop and then boom, now you're done. You're out of the race. So I think the HQs they're very, very good props, but they're expensive and they're fragile. So I like the TJ5045 and I would say they're better. They're better not from the perspective of all-out performance, but sort of from looking at the whole big picture. Okay. Yeah, gyro lines here are very clean, very thin gyro lines. Very good gyro lines. So we do not have an excess gyro noise. Let's see. He thinks he has twitching on the roll axis. Now, twitching, when you tell me you have twitching, like if the copter's flying along and then suddenly it goes, nyet, 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 that feels to me, the first thing I think is excess D gain. D term amplifies noise, and what that means is that the noise will sometimes just come through in such a way that the copter will twitch a little. Okay? Now, we don't have excess D gain here, or excess D term activity here. We can see that the D term, the yellow line, is always lower in magnitude than the P term. Well, you know, to each their own, Tyler. I mean, yeah, if you like them, fly them. I don't. They break too much for me. Maybe I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. They may not be as bad as I'm making them out to be, but they're too fragile for me. Oh, what's this? Oh, what's that? Look at this. That could be a twitch. Look at the P term here. Boink. Now, that's very interesting. The P term, what did the gyro do at that moment? I don't know. That's really weird. There's no weird, oh, that's the I term, sorry. Yeah, the gyro shifted here, and the P term had a spike. That's pretty weird. But the gyro doesn't show anything that would look like a weird twitch. The gyro line is smooth. Here's another P term, twitch. Here. What I was saying here is that the D term here looks very healthy. The D gain, or the D term is small in magnitude compared to the P term. It is not going crazy all over the screen. I like this sort of surging look here for the P gain, for the P term. That's an active but not overactive P gain or P term. This looks like, this feels very well tuned to me, generally. At high throttle, the P term and the D term don't go crazy. They're actually pretty well restrained. Here we've dropped the throttle so the copter is falling because we're in a gravitational field. And as you raise the throttle, there's a little bit of a shimmy. That's normal. Maybe you could raise your min throttle to deal with that a little, or maybe you just don't care. So I think we're limited here in our ability to address the specific question because I just don't know where in the file the twitchy shake that you're talking about is happening, and we also don't have a video. So I don't see a problem in your P term here. The P term looks very well behaved. P term does not make high frequency oscillations anyway, like I said. D term would make high frequency oscillations, but P term wouldn't. This actually looks like a really well-tuned roll axis. We've got lots of cases where these kind of, see this shape of this kind of rolling hills, if you will, or cresting waves. I don't know how you want to put it. That is an active but not overactive P term. That's good. We're not crossing over into oscillations. When the throttle is down and the copter is relatively stable, it almost looks like it's not doing anything. As you get more active, it sort of wakes up, but it never crosses over into hard oscillations. This seems really good. Maybe you could raise your D gain a little, but if it's, the thing is, it's easy to go overboard with D gain, so if the copter is flying good and you have no complaints, I wouldn't change it. Yeah. I don't know. Nothing jumps out at me here. Looks really good. Yes, exactly. Troubleshooting is a nightmare, and it could be any number of an infinite number of failures. Yeah, absolutely. Welcome to the hobby of RC. Yep, the DAL TJs. The speaking of the DAL tri-blades again, the square tip bullnose, which I think is I think it's just the 5045. I'm not sure, but the square tip tri-blade bullnose makes a heck of a lot of thrust, but it is a really heavy prop. It's not super responsive, and it's really not very efficient. You get a little bit more thrust for a lot more amps. So that's why I think the TJ5045 is a sweet spot. But if you had a lower kV motor, like a 2000 kV motor, I think the square tip bullnose would be a great choice if you're trying to make the best of that situation, or even a 2300 kV motor if you're willing to sacrifice flight time for thrust. The T5045, which is the new DAL prop that has a profile similar to the HQ 5x4x3, I think that's the T5045. I put it on my copter and I hated it. Thomas from BMS Web flew it, and he said that, or rather his dad said, I forget his name, he said that once he completely retuned his copter around the prop, it was great. But I'm like, well, if I have to completely retune to get the best performance out of the prop, there's too many other good props. It's not like that good of a prop. I don't know, maybe it is, but I didn't like it. Yep. All right, so let's call this one. It looks very good. Your D gain is low. Let's just check your yaw axis. Maybe that's in your yaw axis. That could be it. Twitchy shake, maybe. Yaw axis. Maybe we'll get a surprise there. No surprise in your yaw axis. Looks fine. And we'll just check your pitch axis real quick, because why not? Again, D term is not excessive. These rolling hills like this is wonderful, actually. This is a fantastic tune right here. I mean, I'm not seeing it fly, but just looking at these traces, looks really good, right? See these rolling hills? This is an active but not overactive P term. This is great. You could use maybe a little more D gain to sharpen it up a little, but overall it looks wonderful. So I would say look to your camera. Look to your camera. Do you have a loose lens? Do you have a loose lens element? Etc. That's where I would go. Nothing wrong with your tune as far as I can tell. Just nothing. That was 1540. We'll do 1544. I think, Abdul, I think you've been burned by a troubleshooting problem. I'm sorry to say. Sounds like you've had a bad experience. Show me on this doll where the quadcopter hurt you. I know, I'm just kidding. New flight control. Don't really know where to start with tuning. I will tell you where to start with tuning. You will start with tuning right here. This thread is one of the first things I contributed to the community, and it is a little bit dated. If you watch these videos, the copter looks like it's flying so bad compared to how good copters fly nowadays. But the fundamentals are still there. That's where you should start. Start at this thread. And let's take a look at your Blackbox recording. But if you haven't gone through the basic steps here, just go through the basic steps there. The advice I'm going to give you from looking at the Blackbox recording, it's all going to be a mess anyway, because I'm just going to tell you to do these steps. So actually, let's work through these steps, really. Let's take a look. You submitted the log. I'll look at it. Oh, maybe I'll look at it. There we go, download. Gosh, Microsoft, it's just a text file. How hard could it be? All right. Now you said we've got a video here. The video relates to log 8. So let's look at the video first. Oh, you got a janky motor. You guys hear that? A bad bearing, perhaps? Hear that motor? Listen. I can't tell if it's just the camera mic. Maybe it's the camera mic, but one of the motors sounds really off. Now the copter has a little bit of a, I'm going to call it a nervousness, where it looks like it's not oscillating, and it's not exactly twitching, but it's just kind of a nervousness where it never seems to settle. That may be excess D gain, perhaps. It may just be the pilot. Hard to tell without the sticks overlay. And it could just be the pilot. So there's unless the tune is really radically off, with this kind of flying, and by the way, what a beautiful place you're flying. Holy crap, I just noticed. What a beautiful place you're flying. That's gorgeous. But if you live here, wow. I mean, people are jealous of where I fly, but wow, I'm jealous of this. This is a beautiful place. Anyway, if this is the kind of flying you're doing, then as long as the tune is really just even in the ballpark, I say don't spend your time tuning. Spend your time learning to fly better. Until you're able to push the limits of the copter more, the limits of the tune will not be what's holding you back. And I see people who are new to the hobby who are super interested in tuning. And hey, right? I'm a tuning nerd too, and I love tuning. I love digging into the black boxes and getting all in there. But the thing is that until you are able to actually find the limits of your tune, you're not going to get useful information out of that effort, unless you're just looking at other people's logs. But if you're looking at your own logs and all you're doing is slowly flying, you're only going to really be able to tell if the tune is way off. So let's see if your tune is way off. You said this corresponds to log 8. We're going to start with the gyros, and we'll zoom out. Gyros look clean. Oh, hey, what the F? What the F? Oh, I'm so glad we looked at this. What is this? So we have thin gyros. The gyros are clean, but look, twitch, 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 twitch. And do you see that the spacing of the twitch is very consistent? That means something. That means something. The timing is not consistent like that on anything normal. Nothing twitches like that normally. What is it? Let's look at the timing. 9.615. 10.055. 10.5. Looks like about a half a second. About a half a second. What is that? What is that? Oh, I have no idea. It's on the roll axis mostly. Okay, so let's think about this some more. This is, yeah, it's not 0.2 this time. If this was only on one axis and exactly one axis, I think it would be more likely to be a bad gyro. Gyro is, it's called MEMS, micro electromechanical structures, I think is what it stands for. It is a tiny, tiny, tiny microscopic physical thing. It's like a little metal arm that is deflected a certain amount as the copter moves. And it's not actually a little metal arm, it's little microscopic structure built out of atoms of, etc. But it's not like a transistor, which is a purely electrical component, okay? It is a physical component, and there's one of those for the x-axis, there's one of those for the y-axis, and there's one of those for the z-axis, and they can break. They can they can get damaged. If you crash your copter enough times, they'll get damaged. So if you have a damaged gyro, you can see a twitch on one axis, but not the other two, because that little metal arm that isn't really a little metal arm has just gotten bent and it's broken. Okay, micro electromechanical systems. Oh, I think that's what I said. Okay, now so this is probably not a bad gyro because we see all of the axes being affected, although we have a closed loop. We have a feedback loop. And what that means is that if the gyro gives us bad data, the motors will respond and everything else will be affected too. But the other thing is that this is a relatively soft and long twitch. It is a bad gyro I think will tend to produce a sharp twitch. And that's not what we're seeing here. It's relatively soft and long. It starts at 9.579. It ends at 9. So it's about a tenth of a second. That's not a bad gyro. Okay, so I didn't think this was a bad gyro to begin with, but I wanted to walk you through the logic of why it wasn't a bad gyro. It was systems. I said structures. Oh, that's 3 out of 4. That's not bad. Anyway, micro electromechanical. Yeah, it's 3 out of 4. I'll take it. 75%. That's good enough, right? So this is not a bad gyro. Now, we already know we had a janky motor. Oh, I dare say we're going to have to sync this up and download it, because I'm going to be really legitimately curious. Let's see if I can download this. This is the first log of today where it's actually really interesting to sync the two. I mean, we haven't been able to answer all the questions we want to answer just based on the black box. Oh, stop. Just stop. Oh, darn it. Okay, now this is the part where the live stream gets boring while I try and download this. I'll do it as quickly as I can. Where did it, oh, seriously. I think this is the one that works. The one I normally use has stopped working for some reason. I don't know why. Well, this one's not going to work either. Thank you, Sam. Thank you very much. Check the RC command. Yeah, okay. That's a good suggestion, Jay. We'll do that while we're waiting for the. Oh, hang on. Let me start this download. But for it to be at like exactly half a second intervals seems really questionable that it would be. Hello. Oh, here we go. Seems really questionable that it would be RC command, but that is well worth checking. Let's do that. Nope. RC command is smooth. Zero difference in RC command, so that's not the issue. Good suggestion, though. Bent motor bell. Well, you're going to have to, plausible, but you're going to have to explain to me how a bent motor bell makes 1/2 second twitches. The motor is spinning at 20,000, 30,000 RPM. So how do we get a frequency out of that manifests as a twitch every half second? That's the question you got to ask. And if you're familiar with the phenomena of beats, where you have two frequencies that are slightly off, and they create the perception of a third frequency, that can happen with the motors. We could have some kind of combined frequencies making a beating, but it would have to be a really radical thing going on to get a strong twitch like this at a half second intervals. So it doesn't feel to me like a bent motor bell or a bent shaft or something like that is probably going to make a much higher frequency oscillation. It looks like it's downloaded. No, it's converted. No, now we get to download it now that it's converted. Well, at least it'll be quick. Okay, OpenLog file for review. We'll get to sync this up here. Okay, I listen for the beep. When I hear the beep, I go back to 50% and I play it forward. There we go. And then I'll double check it. That's actually pretty dead on. Yeah, it's pretty dead on. Okay, so it's synced up now. We'll watch it at 100% and we will watch. Let me take RC command off of here. We'll watch for those twitches and see what we can see. There they are. No, there they are. Look, they're happening right now. Let me slow this down a little. So 50%. I won't go below 50% because below 50% the sound stops and I want to hear the motors. It's just constant. It's just constant. So, this is a tough one. This is a tough one. Okay. When I first started playing the video, I said it sounds like he might have a bad bearing. Let's look at the motors and see if they're doing anything. Specifically, oh yeah, boy, oh boy, oh boy. And specifically, I'm going to look and see if any one motor is consistently running higher than the others. Oh, man. Yeah. I don't know. The back two motors are running higher, but that's a CG or an aerodynamic thing. Here we're flying relatively flat and straight, and notice that the back two motors are basically the same. Yeah, no, none of the motors is having an obvious mechanical problem. Yeah. I don't know. I wouldn't think that a bearing would make a half-second twitch either. It almost makes that's so weird. I don't know. I'm going to have to give up on this one. I've seen these kinds of things coming through, and I just don't know what to do about them or what to say about them. I don't have a good explanation. It's the X-Racer F303, so it's a 6050 chip. It's not the 6500. I have no clue. Why is it such a regular half-second interval is what's really confusing. And it's on, well, you say it's on all the motors, but that could be the PID. That's because the gyro is twitching. Oh, how about we do chicken and the egg? Are the motors twitching, which causes the gyro to move? Or is the gyro twitching, which causes the motors to move? Because if you think about it, if the gyro twitches, the PID loop will respond and all the motors will update. But if the motor is twitching, then the PID loop, the gyro will move because the motor's twitched. Do you follow? But here's the thing. It can't be the motors because all the motors are doing it. All the motors wouldn't twitch at exactly the same time. Could one motor twitch first, which would cause the gyro to move, which would cause the other motors to twitch in the opposite direction to counteract it? Does a motor go first consistently? Doesn't look like it here. There's another one. It doesn't look like it. So all the motors are twitching the same time. Yeah, they're going the opposite of each other because they're trying to counteract the perceived gyro movement. So the front two motors, the right one goes up and the left one goes down. And here, again, the right one goes up and the left one goes down. So they're trying to counteract a perceived roll to the right by spinning up and making the copter roll to the left. Nothing unusual about that. They do appear to be going at the same time. So if they're going at the same time, that means we have a gyro reading coming in that is causing the PID loop to respond. Okay, so it is that the gyro is sending data and the motors are doing the right thing in response, not that the motors are twitching and making the gyro read out wrong. I don't know what his loop time is because, oh, here we go. Let's see if I can get this. Oh, oops. This is his clean flight backup. It's not a config dump. Well, suffice to say, we're not going through that. Do we have a loop time? Loop time of 1,000. Haha, loop time 1,000. There you go. I did find it. Yeah, I don't have an answer here, but it is a good technique that I want you guys, I'm glad you guys were here for. The technique of asking yourself, do we have a motor that's doing the wrong thing, which is making the gyro twitch, or is the gyro showing us a twitch that is causing the motors to respond? Then, so it feels to me like, in fact, so I'm going to go with, I don't know. If it were not a regular half second, then we could say, what if it was a loose flight control board and the board was jiggling? And that makes the gyro move, which makes the motors twitch. I don't see the copter moving. And I just can't explain why it's exactly a half second. That's what just stumps me. So, there you go. I don't know. Put a new flight controller on it. I just don't know. Hope that was educational. Anyway, Timmy, New Zealand. And we're going to get moving on. Yeah, but maybe Dirk gets stuck. I don't what I go back to with all of these potential explanations, all of which are viable and valid, why is it exactly a half second? And the fact that it's exactly a half second makes me wonder if it's software. There's something going on in the software that is adding up to a 500 millisecond, no, half a second, 500 millisecond, that's right. Some kind of a 500 millisecond timing, and I just don't know what that would be. Yeah, so we're going to move on. We're going to put this one away and move on. And that was, what was it, 1544? Yeah. That was a good one. I like that one. Oh, that's good. Was it in acro mode? Oh, I think he was in auto level. Did that video look like auto level to you? Oh, I think it did. That video did look like auto level. That's why he was bobbling the way he was. Oh, that's good. I never think of these things. Well done, Seaweed. You get the gold star for today. He wasn't auto level. The way that copter was bobbling through the turns, that was auto level. Maybe there's something going on with his auto level PIDs. Maybe. Maybe. And maybe, yes, you're absolutely right. And maybe the auto level, the accelerometer loop is running at a lower frequency. Maybe. Yes. So here's what you could do as a test is you could fly it in rate mode and see if those twitches were still there. And if they are still there, it's something to do with the accelerometer or the auto level PIDs. Way to go, you guys. That's really good. All right, we're getting close to the end here. We're at 1550. Oh, yeah, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oh, I don't know if we'll finish. We'll see. But, yeah, we're getting close to the end here. 61. We've had like 60 people watching for a while. Thank you guys for watching. I hope it's been fun. I've had a good time. Let's take a look at this one. Oh, this is race flight. Oh, man. I don't know. Micro oscillations all the time. I just didn't think of that because I just in my mindset, who flies auto level? Yeah, well, who flies auto level? A new pilot like that guy. Yeah, of course. I just didn't think of it. This is, where is it? Hello. And the issue we're looking at is micro oscillations all the times. Well, you guys know what I'm going to do. And I say, if you get bored, if you're like, oh, now he's checking the gyros, congratulations. Hopefully you've learned something, right? Hopefully when you're doing your own analysis, you're like, okay, let's check the gyros. Now we'll look at the PIDs and look for oscillations. If you get to the point where it's completely boring, then you should be able to do it. And then congratulations, you've learned something. And if you can't do it and you're still bored, well, maybe this isn't for you. Oh, my goodness. And this is why I always check the gyros first. Wow. Wow. Look at this. Yaw gyro. Wow. Oh, my God. Look how thick that line is. Look how thick that line is. Wow. Hey, and by the way, credit where credit's due. I learned the trick of the yaw gyro zooming out from Boris. Boris, he just throwing gold, he was like, oh yeah, just zoom out. And I was like, oh my God, that's good. So credit to him, as always. Okay, yaw, oh, what happened? What happened? Why did it stop? Yaw gyro's super noisy, and then all of a sudden, why did it stop? Whoa, that's so weird. Is it because you're doing a yaw move? What are you doing? Oh, hang on. The video. This is the right video at all. Hold on, let me reload this file. This is not the right video. I don't want to confuse myself. But still, gyros zoom out. Yeah, how to get this data. You want, hang on, pause this for a second. You want Blackbox for clean flight. This is where you want to be. Okay? And I have, sadly, searching my channel for Blackbox is not going to help you much. But if you search for Blackbox and OpenLog, I think you should do all right. No. Yeah. How about nays? What about this? Oh, man, you guys are screwed. Oops. Oh, shoot. I'll never find it. Okay, I don't know. Oh, that's a real problem. I don't know how I'm going to address that. No one can ever find that video. So I have videos. I'm gonna have to figure out how to find them for you. But I have a video on connecting OpenLog to NAS32. Oh, you know what? I have to put NAS32. There we go. Connecting OpenLog to NAS32 with CleanFlight. And then if you want to learn, so that's how to get the data. If you're going to buy an OpenLog device, I strongly, if you're in the US, I strongly advise you to go to multirotormania.com and buy it there. And the reason is that they ship it. Oh, come on. They ship it pre-configured with the right firmware, and there are people, lots of people are contacting me saying, I'm trying to flash the firmware and I can't do it. And they order it from Banggood or Amazon, and it comes with the wrong firmware on it, and then for whatever reason, it just will not flash through the You're supposed to be able to flash it through the Arduino IDE. I even have a friend of mine, a person I know in real life, who bought one from... he bought it from SparkFun. Don't buy it from SparkFun. They'll charge you $25 for the same thing. So if you like spending money or you want to support SparkFun, go right ahead. But it's supposed to be like a legit, real deal one, and I couldn't flash it with the Arduino IDE. I just don't know why. So this is where I buy them from. This is where I advise you to buy them from. I don't even get kickbacks or free stuff from them. I'm welcome to send them to. Send me free OpenLogs. I go through them. But it's just they ship it and it's got the right firmware on it. It's $9. You're not going to get it cheaper if you order it from Banggood. And you know, if you're not in the US, then I don't know what to tell you. It's probably not worth international shipping. It's just such a hassle to flash it. It should be simple, and for some reason it just never is. So this is where I order them. So get the hardware, hook it up according to that video, and then you get the Blackbox log viewer, which is actually a Chrome app. So you just go in the Chrome store, right? And then you do what I'm doing. And if you want to learn to do what I'm doing, you should go to my Blackbox log video responses thread. By the way, I'm going fast, but I know this is all being recorded. So if you need to go back through this, just make a note of the timestamp and just go back in the recording and find it and pause it. It's the beauty of the internet, right? You can literally follow along with me for, I think I'm over 100 pages, for 53. Oh, only 53 pages. 53 pages while I learn to do this along with you. And so if you really want to learn to do this, start at the beginning. And what happened to this? Oh, he took his videos down. You need my videos. Just start with my videos. And I talk you through a lot of the basic stuff in the beginning that I don't talk through anymore, just because I've gone past it. But you can go back and you can just start at the beginning and you can work your way through it, and you can pick up the basic stuff as you go. Okay, so that would be my suggestion if you want to learn to do this. Would a mini Arduino work? I mean, to flash it or as a logger? I don't understand. Okay, well, once in 11 seconds you'll get back to me. What was somebody else saying? Send them where? Oscar Lang. Oscar Lang. Yeah, he's very good as well. Oscar Lang. Let's try Oscar Lang OpenLog. His blog is fantastic. He has a blog and I have a YouTube channel. But he has a lot of the same content I do. OscarLang.com. Lots and lots of very good information here. So yeah, definitely. Arduino Nano clone. To flash it? Or as the logger? I think you must mean to flash it. That's fine. If you're in Pakistan, good luck. I wish I could tell you what to do. I just don't have any advice for you. I just don't know what to do. You're not going to order it from Multi-Rotor Mania, that's for sure. So you may have to just do so the limitation on the one that comes from Banggood is that if it doesn't have the right firmware, it cannot do 250 kilobaud. It can only do whatever 120, whatever it is, whatever the next step down is. And that means that you can't, 250 kilobaud is already not fast enough. You want it to be faster, but so you can't log as fast. Any guides to using onboard memory? Well, it's the same thing. You just need to set up a mode in CleanFlight and a switch on your transmitter with an aux channel to activate the logging. The other thing is that you may want to increase your Blackbox rate denom so that you log slower, because the chip will fill up real fast. The X-Racer F303 from FPV Model is the flight controller I like to use. It has a 16 megabyte flash chip on it, which is the largest on the market. I think that there's one other board out there that has the same size. It's tied for first. But at 1,000 loop time or 2,000 loop time, you'll get something like 10 to 20 minutes of logging off of that, which is very good. But you're not going to be able to go fly all day, fly 10, 20 batteries, and come back home and just dump it all. Okay. Yeah, F303. Is that not what I said? F303. Yeah, could I restart? No, but you can restart and do it all over. Oh, the stream. Can I restart the stream? No, you can watch the stream. I DVR'd the stream, so you should be able to actually just go back up to 4 hours and start over. And the stream will be recorded and posted to my channel in a few hours once it processes. So no worries there. Alrighty. Oh, I got off track. Mattyra. Here's your dump, and your yaw gyro is super noisy. Just your yaw gyro. Is it on all of them? Are they all like that? Yeah. Oh yeah, they're all like that. Why does it stop here though? Is it when you input yaw that it stops? Why is that? That's so weird. Let's go look at the yaw axis. It's the most interesting yaw axis in the world. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness, that's why. Look. P-term oscillations. Crazy P-term oscillations. And so crazy P-term oscillations at like 0 throttle. Your P gain is so high. It's so high. Too high. Way too high. Why does it stop as soon as you move the stick though? As soon as you move the stick, now the stick is centered, and then it starts again. Is it because you're on the ground? Is it because you're on the ground and you're not flying? Oh, now you're flying and it settles down. Oh, okay. Oh, man, that explains it. It's because you were on the ground. Okay, now you're flying. Okay. Darn, I really thought we were on to something here. Yeah, but if you order off of eBay, it's a crapshoot whether you're going to get a good one. Sometimes you do get... No, see, here it is again. You're flying now. There's no excuse. P-term oscillation. So P gain on yaw is way too high. Yeah, way too high. Now there's no excuse because you're not on the ground as far as I know because your throttle is up and you're flying. Yeah. So what... Screen dump. Let's look at your screen dump. So yeah, you're using LuxFloat. But if you're using LuxFloat, then these PIDs are scaled really weird. They must be rescaled PIDs in raceflight. I don't know what's normal for the raceflight and LuxFloat, so I couldn't tell you, but your yaw P gain is high. And you're getting these crazy oscillations under some flight conditions. So that's not helping. I would take your yaw P gain way down until these oscillations go away. That'd be the first thing I would do. Yep, micro oscillations all the time. It's your yaw axis. And again, guys, that's the gyros. The gyro readout. It doesn't always tell you anything, but sometimes it just shines a light. And you look here, and you can just see it's the yaw axis has a problem, clearly. Alrighty. Oh, let's see. Have we got an easy one? Can we bang out one more? 1552. Got 67 people on the live stream. So I shouldn't quit while I'm the highest number possible. This is the highest number so far today. Oh, no, but it's a complicated one. No, forget it. We're going to stop 1552. You always got to leave them wanting more. Isn't that what they say? We'll pick up next time. The next time I do one, maybe it'll be on Wednesday, perhaps, if we get enough. I shouldn't say that. People will just start submitting them like crazy, and then that'll be it for me. Maybe on Wednesday we'll do another one. I don't know. I'll let you guys know on my Facebook page. If you guys have not subbed also already to my Facebook page, here it is. I started a Facebook page so that I can make little announcements to you guys and so forth without having to make a video for every little thing. That's where I'll be announcing future live streams. So like this page if you want to get updates on that. For now, we're going to wrap it up. Let me just see if there's any more questions here. What happens with the black box graph if the P gains are too low? If the P gains are too low, then the P term will just be very quiet. It will have no magnitude away from the axis. So it'll just be basically close to zero the whole time. That's it there. Oh, hey, and Bright Until I Fly is here. Wants me to plug the Let's Drone Out podcast. I can do that. I was on that podcast. Let's Drone Out. You guys can see a recording of it on my... This is not you. See a recording of it on my... maybe that is you. Yeah, here it is. Let's Drone Out on iTunes. I was on that show once. Maybe I'll be on it again. We'll see. What's my education and what's my job? I work with RF systems. I design and install and troubleshoot RF systems. So mostly Wi-Fi these days because Wi-Fi is pretty big. So if you have a hospital or a hotel or an office building or a stadium or a fairgrounds where you want to build a Wi-Fi network, I can help you with that. That's what I do. I have a degree in computer science from Georgia Institute of Technology. Is Blackbox necessary to get a great tune? No, it is not. It is not. There are pilots out there who are fantastic tuners who get a great tune without Blackbox. Personally, I would feel really crippled without it or really limited without it because I feel like it's a great tool to help me refine my tune to really fine degree. But yeah, Mr. Steele doesn't use Blackbox. But here's the thing. He knows how to make a copter fly like he wants it to fly, right? But I bet you I would look at his Blackbox log and go, "Whoa, wow, look at this D-term noise, whatever," you know? So it's just what you're looking for. Does it make tuning easier? I think it makes tuning easier. I hate the uncertainty of line of sight or visual tuning. I can get the P term pretty close to correct and the I term pretty close to correct. I think it's pretty hard to tune the D term without Blackbox. I think it's pretty hard. You can do it. But I just like having that extra insight to look at Blackbox. I feel like I tune faster with Blackbox because I can look at a Blackbox log and go, okay, I need to drop my P gain by 0.4 and be pretty close to right. So, yeah. And for troubleshooting, Blackbox is essential, I think. When you have a thing that's gone wrong and you don't know why, Blackbox gives you a huge amount of insight. Hi there, Multirotor 4. I have your friend request. I just haven't accepted it yet. I just didn't get around to it. The thing is, not everybody wants to be looking at Blackbox logs for hours, right? Not everybody wants to just stare at, oh, lines. I like that stuff, and I think it works for me because I know what a copter that flies, how I want it to fly, looks like in Blackbox. So I go out and I fly, and then I look at it in Blackbox and I go, okay, I know what I need to do. That's my method. Other people would do now, but I tune the I gain basically exclusively visually because I just don't feel like Blackbox is very helpful for that. Having too much D gain. Oh, what am I holding in my head? That's a cat. That's my cat. That's my cat. See? Having too much D gain. D term amplifies gyro noise. So having too much D gain makes it seem like the copter has too much noise. Hot motors for micro oscillations, way too much. Yeah, that's absolutely correct. Will burn your ESCs or your motors because the ESC will try to make the motor vibrate faster than it can possibly vibrate. And since the motor is not converting the electrical energy into mechanical energy, it converts it into heat, and they heat up. So, but if that's a really extreme example, excess D gain will cause a kind of, I say it's like driving over a rough, bumpy road. The copter's flying, and it kind of, it's not twitching or it's not oscillations like that, but it's kind of a, like that, right? That's what D term excess D gain looks like to me. Quadcopter cat and quadcopter dog do not get along very well. No. Quadcopter dog likes to murder small animals. So quadcopter cat is justifiably suspicious of his intentions. Yeah, okay. All right, folks, that's going to be it. Thank you for coming to the live stream. I hope it's been helpful. Hope it's been fun and educational. And as always, happy flying.